besties, it's Sarah. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing a video where we read booktubers' favorite books of 2023. I believe that this is my 4th year doing this video. I've done this 3 times previously, and what I love about this concept is that it allows me to find new favorite books and it allows me to shout out other booktubers, and it's just a fun video overall. I came up with a couple of categories of how I'm going to be creating this TBR. I'm going to be reading 5 books. I'm going to read 2 of the most popular books, meaning the books that show up on the most amount of lists. Then I'm going to find my 2 booktube besties, and basically what this means is I went through everyone's lists and I marked down every time someone had a book that I had given either 4 or 5 stars. So the top 2 people that have the most in common with me, I will pick a book from each of their lists and they will be deemed my booktube besties. And then the final book, I just wanted to have a little fun and read whatever the fuck I wanted, and so I'm calling this one Dealer's Choice because I am the dealer and I'm also choosing. So I just am going to choose something random for that. So getting into the first category, we have the books that are the most popular. I had 2 books that showed up on quite a few people's lists. The first one being The 7-Year Slip, which was on 12 people's.
Sure.
Vivian, Heather, Lisa, Destiny, Tiffany, Allie, Sarah, Morgan, Haley, Gabby, and Loranda. I'm pretty excited to read The 7-Year Slip because it's been getting major buzz. Everyone has been loving this, and I've never read a book by Ashley Poston. And then the second book is actually a series. I made a note every time someone mentioned a book in the Chestnut Spring series because I really want to read that. It's been on my TBR for a while, and so as it kept showing up on people's lists, I was like, yes, I do need an excuse to read the first book in that series. We had 8 people: Destiny, Allie, Sarah, Vivian, Charlotte, Steph, Ellen, Catherine, Joe, and Riley. And then moving on to my booktube besties, I actually wanted to go over everyone that had 4 or more books in common with me. To be honest, none of these people know that we're besties, but I'm just going to boldly say that. First, we have Jen. She had 4 books in common with me: Trust of the Emerald Sea, Sword Heart, Empire of Gold, and Nettle and Bone. And then up next we had Jenny. She had 5 books in common with me: Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, A Dowry of Blood, What My Bones Know, Big Swiss, and In the Dream House. And then the next person also had 5 books in common with me, and that was Sydney. Part of Your World, Fourth Wing, If We Were Villains, Trust of the Emerald Sea, and Piranesi. And then moving into my top 2 booktube besties, the ones that I'm actually going to read a book from their list. First one we have is Katie Marie. She had 6 books in common with me: A Long Way to a Small and Angry Planet, Every Heart a Doorway, Book Lovers, This Is How You Lose the Time War, Fourth Wing, and Our Wives Under the Sea. And then finally, my number 1 booktube bestie with 8 books in common with me is Riley Marie. This honestly is not very surprising because Riley is actually one of my real besties. Like, we talk every day and we're very close, and if you follow both of us, you probably already know that we're very close friends. On her list, she had The Patient, Confessions, Ninth House, Butcher and Blackbird, The World Gives Way, Silver Under Nightfall, the Mindfuck series, and Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. I don't know what it is about the middle name Marie, but both Riley Marie and Katie Marie, we had so much in common, guys. So from Katie's list, I'm going to select Bandit Queens. She really sold me on this because she said that if you like Finlay Donovan, you probably should read this, and I actually didn't like Finlay Donovan, and she said it was better than that. So I was like, I would love an alternative. I would love a cozy mystery type book where someone is like killing men. Like, that sounds interesting to me. And then from Bestie Riley's list, I am going to be reading Bloom. This is a sapphic cottagecore horror, and I'm so excited to read it. It was Riley's number 1 book of the year. I'm a little nervous. I'm a little scared because if I don't like this, I do think that Riley will unfriend me, and that would be very depressing for me. And then finally, for the Dealer's Choice, I'm going to go ahead and read You Again. This is a romance book that I've been hearing a lot of buzz about. A lot of people have been loving this. I saw this on 3 people's lists. It was on Samantha, Cindy, and Jana's lists. Jana is actually a pretty new booktuber, and she's one of my patrons, and she loved this, so I feel like I will love this. And also Riley read it recently and she really liked it too, and we already know that Riley's one of my booktube besties, so I feel like there's a lot of things working in my favor, so hopefully I will love this book. Also, if you're interested, I'm doing a Patreon exclusive version of this video where I read 2 pirate books that showed up on people's lists. We have Darkwater Daughter that was on Jen's list. She made it sound so amazing, so I really wanted to pick this up. And then I saw The Adventures of Amina El-Sarafi showing up on a lot of people's lists as well, and so I was like, I need to pick that up. And then I realized I had 2 pirate books on my hands. So then I thought, why not do a pirate versus pirate type video for my patrons, especially because we read Trust of the Emerald Sea last November for our book club, and I feel like we all like pirates, so it's gonna be a good pirate old time. That's not a saying.
This book, it just really took me by surprise.
This book is a romance, but it's also so much more than that.
It's so emotional, but also very impactful.
This book made me feel.
It was just such a romantic book.
Romance was so genuine and sweet.
I'm obsessed. Like, they're so cute.
This book is magical and wonderful.
Magical realism in this book is so
so perfect. Every single word choice made in this book makes it so sunny and bright.
This book now sets the standard.
If you want a beautiful love story, please read this.
Okay, besties, I finished The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston, and what can I say about this book? What I can say is that this book is very well received by so many people. As you saw, it was the #1 book I saw on everyone's lists. It has so many 5-star reviews on Goodreads, and there's not that many people who gave it 1 or 2 stars. I feel as though maybe I got a different copy of this book than the rest of you because I don't get the appeal at all. I actually didn't update you guys sooner because the entire time I was reading it, I was like, oh no, oh no, 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 I hate this. I hate it, I hate it. I did not like this book. So we're following this character named Clementine, and her aunt recently died, and so she's been very sad, obviously so, about this, and she moves into her aunt's apartment, and her aunt always told her there's something magical about this apartment. Every once in a while when you walk inside, you might come across someone who is 7 years in the past. And even though her aunt straight up told her that, when it happens to her and she meets this guy, I don't remember, oh, Ewan, that was his name. Oh, I remember because I hated his name. I thought for a second I forgot, but I think I was just trying to black it out from my memory. But anyway, she meets this guy named Ewan, and he's like in her apartment, and he's like, hey, your aunt said I could stay here. And she's like, oh my God, what's happening? And then weirdly in the narrative, she's like, oh yeah, I forgot. My aunt told me this apartment is magical. And I just feel like the writing was very clunky and awkward like that. The dialogue was not good. Also, the romance between Clementine and Ewan was not good. It was not good. So basically, she goes into her apartment, she finds this guy, and they end up spending the weekend together. And I thought the story was going to be a series of them spending time together in the apartment. Like every once in a while she'll walk in, he'll be there, and then they will like both know about the magic of the apartment and they'll fall in love over a space of time. But they actually only spend 1 weekend together, 1 little short weekend, and then suddenly she's like, I'm in love with him. But then the apartment like won't bring her back for a while. Modern day Ewan is a chef, but he has a different name. He's like going by his like middle name. I think he's like James or some shit like that. I don't really understand why we had 2 different names for this character. Like she would go in the past and spend time with Ewan, but then he would be like James in the present. But anyway, she meets him and he's so different than the Ewan that she just met in her apartment. And she's like, oh my God, what has happened to you in the last 7 years to make you so different? It was just a really awkward story because we were constantly being whiplashed between the current Ewan and the old Ewan. Also, I had to keep hearing the name Ewan, which in and of itself was an issue. Sounds like something from Star Wars. I'm sorry. I know that there is like a Scottish name like Ewan, but it would have been better if it was Ewan, but it's literally I-W-A-N. And I did not like that name. Clementine is not my favorite character that I've ever had to read from. Both of these characters were very much nothing burgers. They were literally serving me nothing. My plate was empty. There weren't even any crumbs because, not because it ate, but because they didn't even give me food to begin with. There was no sustenance in this book, and I just felt like it was insta-love. The insta-love was crazy. They went from not knowing each other to suddenly they're in love. And then modern day James Ewan was acting so weird and not really letting Clementine know that he knew. And it was also weird because she was still meeting Ewan in her apartment. So like she would have like an argument with modern day James and then like go back to her apartment and have sex with Ewan. I think this story would have been a lot better if it was dual POV, but we got past Ewan's perspective and we got current Clementine, and then we wouldn't know what current James was thinking. So it would have like added a lot of interest to the story because I feel like I just was reading about 3 different characters even though it was only 2 characters. I did not think it was cute. I was not happy the entire time I was reading. I did not have any of the feelings that the girlies promised me. And I feel bad for saying this because I know we just came from a clip where all the girls were like, oh my God, best romance ever. And here I am to say that I disagree. Also, the time traveling aspect of this is never explained, which is fine because it's meant to be magical realism. And you know, there doesn't always have to be a magic system to everything. But I felt like the device wasn't even used as often as I thought it was going to be in the story. Like I thought this was going to be giving The Lake House, like the movie with Sandra Bullock and Keanu Reeves, which is a movie that I have always really loved. But that is not what this was giving, because at least in The Lake House, when they were writing each other letters, they actually had reasons to like each other because they were like pouring out their feelings into these notes that they were leaving for each other. Also, I feel like there needed to be a little bit of a trigger warning. This is going to be a minor spoiler, so if you don't want to hear it, you should skip to the next book. But we find out that Clementine's aunt actually killed herself. And so it's just kind of like surprise suicide in the middle of the book. I don't know. I also think it could have been interesting if they wanted to play around with even her aunt being a third perspective. Like maybe we could have experienced her aunt experiencing the apartment when she used to live in it, because back in the day when she first moved into it, she had a relationship with a woman. I don't understand why everyone loved this. And I'm so sorry. I'm probably gonna put this on my worst of the year.
I don't know what she puts in these books, but it is so good.
And I am obsessed with this series.
Physically, every time I read an Elsie Silver book, it's like a visceral reaction as to how much I adore these books. I can't get over it.
And then this one's hot. Like, they're all so hot.
Stunning book, stunning series. Love this to bits.
I freaking love this series.
Would 100% recommend it.
Besties, slap my ass, say yeehaw, save a horse, ride a cowboy. I am obsessed with Flawless. I just read the first book in the Chestnut Spring series and I'm obsessed. I meant to update you sooner, but I couldn't because it was just slaying too hard. Like, I was having such a great time. I was live up living. So in this book, we're following this guy that's a bull rider. I don't remember anyone's names, even though I literally just read the book. But anyway, this guy's a bull rider, and at the very start of the book, he gets in trouble because these journalists catch him on camera saying that he doesn't like milk. But because of the farmland that he's from in Canada, and also because of like some milk sponsors that he has, this is like a huge no-no. And so his agent is like freaking out because they're like losing all these sponsorships, losing all this money. And so his agent has a daughter that works for him, and he basically assigns her to babysit. And so they basically have to spend 24/7 together because she's trying to help him, you know, improve his public relations, improve his PR, and do all these different interviews and whatnot. And so she has to go with him to his family ranch, and they're just spending a lot of time together. And at first they don't like each other because he kind of thinks of her as like a city girl, like doesn't know what she's doing, doesn't know what she's saying. She's annoying him because she's just like following her around, and he thinks she's like really stuck up, and he like jokingly calls her princess as kind of like to tease her because that's what her dad calls her. Obviously they start falling in love when they are on the road together because they have to go to all of his different like bull riding events. And I never thought that I would like a cowboy romance, but Miss Elsie Silver, she convinced me. She convinced me. It's so good. If you want to read about liberal cowboys that like actually respect women, please read this. Like, I can't wait to pick up the sequel. But oh my god, it was such a breath of fresh air, especially after reading The 7-Year Slip. No offense to everyone that like The 7-Year Slip, but for me, that was not doing it. But this one, I loved it. I loved it. I feel like I don't really have a lot of very thoughtful things to say about it beyond that it's just so cute. And I agree with everyone that was talking about the series and hyping it up. It's just one of those things where you're like, the girlies, they were right about this one, because so often when a book is really popular on TikTok and whatnot, I get nervous. I get nervous. This time they were right. They were correct, and it's so cute, and I cannot wait to read the sequel. I've heard that the sequel is a lot of people's favorites. Yeah, it was great. I think my final rating for this is like 4.5 stars.
It's talking about serious things. We're talking about alcohol abuse. We're talking about domestic violence. We're talking about all of these issues that our main character is facing and the women in her town are facing. And it's also an over-the-top thriller. I had such a good time with it.
Played the movie in my head. I was fully and entirely there. It somehow has both low stakes and high stakes all at the same time.
It's surprising. It's radical. It's filled with important commentary on social issues.
Okay, besties, I am about halfway through Bandit Queens, and I am live up loving. This book is following this woman named Geeta whose husband went missing about 5 years ago, and everyone in her village in India believes that she killed her husband, but she didn't. She has no idea where he is, but everyone believes that about her. So one day, one of the other women that she knows shows up at her house, and she's like, hey, since you got rid of your philandering, abusive husband, what if you helped me get rid of mine? And so she kind of gets embroiled in this murder situation where all these women keep coming to her and asking her to help dispose of their no good husbands. And I find the humor very interesting and very funny. Also, I haven't read a ton of books set in India, and I am really enjoying learning about life in India and what it's like to live in a small village, because it's so different from my own experience. And I feel like the way that the author is doing it is not very info dumpy. Like, she just kind of like weaves in all the information you need to know. And I feel like she's dealing with some very serious topics like domestic abuse and murder in a very nice way. It's almost like delightful in a weird way. Like, she adds a lot of levity to the situation. So even though the situations are quite sad and they do seem to reflect a reality of a lot of women, the only thing I have to say, I have 2 complaints. They are very personal to me, but I feel like this is not going to be a 5-star for these reasons. So number 1, there is a lot of like casual fat phobia in this, because there is a character that Geeta doesn't really like, and she's gained a lot of weight after having children, and she is not very nice to her about it. Like, there's a lot of her calling that other character fat, and fat phobia for me is just one of my triggers. Like, I don't enjoy it. If it has nothing to do with moving the plot along, I don't want to read about it. It feels like there's so many other things that they could have thought about or been mean to each other about, and I just don't feel like weight had to be brought into it, because it definitely doesn't seem like it reflects the author's thoughts, because later Geeta apologizes to this character. And then the other thing is there's a dog character who is great. Love the dog. When Geeta is training him, there's a couple of times where she like hits him, like she bops him on the nose to try to teach him to do things. And I was just like, girl, can you please stop hitting the dog? Like, please. It's not a huge thing, but it's just something that bothers me. And also there was some dog abuse like earlier in the book from like a bad guy, not from her. And so I don't know, those are my 2 minor complaints. Also, by the way, speaking of dogs, I need to show off my sweater. I got this sweater recently. I am obsessed. I am obsessed. It is so cute. I love dogs. I love them so much. I'm obsessed. I'm actually more of a dog girl than I am a cat girl. I love cats. Don't get me wrong. We have 2 cats, but I am a dog girl through and through. And look at this. It's so cute. The second half of this book took a very interesting turn, and it got very convoluted and messy and a little bit boring. Like, it was very chaotic, but also boring at the same time, which I don't really know how you manage to do that. And so I don't know, I just ended up not really liking this. So I think I'm gonna end up rating it 2 stars because it had so much promise. There was so much that I liked about the beginning of the book. Like, all the things that I said early on are still true. So if any of that sounded interesting to you, I definitely would say still give it a try, like if it sounds good, because maybe it just wasn't for me. I think it was a little bit too quirky. It was a little bit too chaotic. It was just not what I wanted it to be. I think the first half of the story was a lot stronger, and it kind of felt like it needed more editing. Like, the story just needed more of an editor because it gets so far-fetched and so crazy towards the end that I just truly like was not having a good time, which is really unfortunate because I really, really liked what I had read. I definitely think I would give this author another chance. Like, I would read more from her. I'm not mad that I picked it up. It was a fast read, but I think ultimately I was not lived up loving. So I'm very sorry to my booktube bestie, Katie Marie, for not loving your favorite book. I'm so sorry. So sorry. Let me know. What else do you think I should read? To be fair, she actually just filmed a video reading booktubers like hot takes, where she was like reading books that had like controversial opinions surrounding them. So she read Book of Night by Holly Black because that's one of my favorite books and a lot of people don't like that book. And she rated it like 3 stars. So I don't feel as bad giving this 2 stars just because she didn't necessarily love one of my favorite books either. Not that it's tit for tat, but we did not agree about this one or Book of Night.
They start dating, they start a romance. It is so romantic, and I was like, oh my god, the sapphic yearning. Lurking in the background of this book is something sinister, something dark. There's red flags. The ending of this book is cemented in my brain. I will never forget the feeling that I felt reading the final pages. This is just hands down the best book that I read in 2023 and definitely a top favorite of all time.
Okay, besties, I am 100 pages into Bloom. I started this like a week ago, but I'm really excited to continue with this because I know that it's a slow burn and that the last bit of this book is crazy. Like, Riley literally said that the ending of this book changed her brain chemistry. So I'm very excited to get into kind of the horror aspects. Currently where we're at in the book, we have this main character named Rosemary, and she recently moved to a small town from New York City because she had a pretty bad breakup with her ex-boyfriend, and she goes to the farmer's market, and one day she meets this girl named Ash who sells cupcakes and soap there, and they hit it off right away. And in the past, Rosemary has never been attracted to women, but there's something about Ash that just really piques her interest, and so they start a relationship. So the first 100 pages of this has been them getting to know each other. I don't want to say too much about the plot because it is a novella, so I probably can't say anything about the actual horror aspects or what happens after this point, but just know that so far they've been getting to know each other. Just now at the 100-page mark, there's been some creepy things starting to happen, like some concerning red flags about Ash. But Rosemary is just like so in love with her, and it's like her first like lesbian romance. She is not really seeing the signs, you know, because she doesn't really have a lot of experience dating women. And I wanted to update you guys now because I know that this is going to be such a trip at the end. So now you see me before the craziness, you'll see me during the craziness, and you'll see me at the end. Okay, besties, I just finished this. I'm gonna be upfront. My ADHD was really ADHDing. It took me a very long time to finish this. It did get kind of crazy towards the end, for sure. I am gonna give it 4 stars. I really liked this. It's not the 5-star that I was hoping for. Personally, I think that Delilah S. Dawson gave a little bit too much about this plot away. Like, I went on her Instagram once looking for news on if there was gonna be an audiobook when Riley was first raving about this book, and she actually gives away the twist on her Instagram. So I do not recommend looking up anything about this book if you want to read it. But I think if I had been able to be surprised by the end, it would have helped me push to like that 5-star emotional rating, because for me 5 stars tend to be about about the actual experience I had. But hopefully 4 stars is acceptable to Riley as a rating for this book. I hope that she still accepts me as her friend, even though I didn't give it 5 stars. To be fair, in her reading booktubers favorites, she read Last Tale of the Flower Bride, which is a perfect 5-star for me, and she gave it like 4 stars. So we both gave each other's favorite books 4 stars. Those are my final thoughts on this. I am glad that I read it. I'm glad that I got to share in one of Riley's favorite books, and I do highly recommend this if you're interested. If like a sapphic cottagecore turned horror sounds good to you, I definitely think you should pick this up, because the ending will gag you if you don't know where it's going. I mean, you might predict it, but it still would be like fun to kind of uncover it along the way, even if you predict it.
You Again has become my favorite romance book of all time, because I ate this shit up from the very beginning that I read it.
I absolutely adored this. This was amazing. I read it in a day. I was sat. I was emotional. I went through so much in this book, and as do the characters.
It's hilarious. It is one of the funniest romances I've ever read in my life.
Okay, besties, I finished You Again. I absolutely loved it. So basically in this book, we're following 2 characters. We have Ari and then we have Josh, and their paths keep crossing over, I think, like 8 years. And apparently the story is loosely based on When Harry Met Sally. I've actually never seen the movie, so I couldn't really speak to that. And so she based it off of that. And they live in New York City, and they just keep running into each other, but they hate each other in the beginning. And what I loved about this book was the passage of time. I loved that we kept getting to see them at different parts of their life. I feel like this would make the most perfect miniseries. It felt very episodic, because every time they run into each other in the beginning of the book, they're actually in relationships with other people. Like at one point, Ari is married to someone, and Ari is a comedian and Josh is a chef. And Josh is a little bit pretentious, and he's trying to open his own restaurant, kind of, I forget what year that is, but like somewhere in the beginning, he's trying to open his own restaurant, and Ari's married to this woman because she's actually a bisexual queen. And what I really loved about Ari is that she just did not have her life together. She was very, very, very messy. She was really into casual sex for a long time, and then she ended up marrying this woman. And then later in the book, when they finally come together for like the rest of the story, like when they're actually going to start building their romantic relationship, she's actually going through a divorce with this woman who is a little bit older than her. It was just done so well, especially the way that it's written, because it's 3rd person limited. In the scenes where Josh and Ari were together, I feel like what the author did so well is that she so seamlessly would go between people's limited perspective. Like we would be in Josh's brain, and then the scene he would like look over at Ari, and it would like seamlessly transfer over to like her consciousness. I know I keep describing it as messy, and I don't mean the writing, I mean the characters and their character choices. They just felt like real people. I haven't really ever seen a ton of the show Girls, but Ari kind of seemed like someone that would be on that show. And I did look on Goodreads, and I saw a couple of people say that they didn't like this book because they didn't like Ari, but I'm just like, sometimes a messy main character is what we need. I will definitely read anything else that Miss Kate puts out in the future. I loved all the side characters. I loved the main characters. I loved their romance. I believed it by the end. Like, she put them through so much through the story, and by the time they got together at the end, I was like, yes, I'm here, I believe it. And I think that's a thing that's missing for me a lot in romance, where it feels like the journey that the couple goes on just feels so silly and fake, so superficial, like it always is happening over very short periods of time. Yes, I am actually shading the 7-Year Slip right now, but yeah, I actually already ordered a copy of it on Panga Books, because I was like, I need to have this on my shelf, because it's simply going to be one of those romances that I always think of, and I definitely could see myself rereading it in the future. And yeah, this is for the girlies that enjoy a little mess. Like if you're a girls person, a normal people person. And I do have to give the caveat that I actually don't normally like characters like that. A lot of times characters who don't have their lives together kind of stress me out. Ari was just very lovable in her own way. Like, I did not agree with a lot of the things she said or did. I just liked her so much. I feel like everyone was really likable. Even Josh was likable, even though he was an asshole for a lot of the book, because he's just so pretentious. And I'll even forgive him for being named Josh, because Josh is a horrible name. But I guess that brings me to the end of this video of reading booktubers' favorite books of 2023. I know that I uploaded it a little late. I'm so sorry for that. I just feel like lately I've been going through something mentally, emotionally, and doing YouTube stuff has been difficult for me. So I don't know, it just took me a while to finish all the books on this TBR, but I'm glad that I went through and I did it, because this is one of my favorite videos to make every single year. If you've made it to the end and you enjoyed it, feel free to use one of the heart emojis, whatever heart emoji speaks to you. And I want to give a big shout out to all the booktubers who were featured in this video. Please check them out. I've linked them all down below, and I thank you all so much for watching. You're all beautiful. Have a nice day.